She did her MTech in printing and plastic packaging technology from College of Engineering, Guindy. Currently, she is associated with Quality Containers. She has rich technical knowledge and experience in plastic packaging and solutions. I hope this session would be of immense importance to all the participants today. I request all the participants to mute their audio, and you can post your questions in the chat box. Over to you, Ms. Ranjani.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning to everyone present today. So I thank, first of all, I thank IPI and Crescent University for giving me this opportunity to present today. So I would like to start my presentation now. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Very well, ma'am.
Yes, sure. So I'll start my presentation now. Yes. So I am going to talk about developments and innovations in the plastic industry. So I would like to divide my presentation into three parts. One is I'll talk about first about developments in the field of plastic materials. Next, I'll talk about some innovations in the field of processing. And last, I would like to split it into recycling. So first we'll talk about developments in the field of plastics. So when we talk about materials, I'm sure the current term or the term in the past decade has the focus has been on bioplastics. Bioplastics are definitely the way to go in the future. There are also a lot of developments that have been going on in the past decade or even earlier, and currently there are also a lot of commercial products available in the market when it comes to bioplastics. So bioplastics are of, we can categorize it into two types, or we can consider the following two plastics as bioplastics. One is bio-based plastics, and next is biodegradable plastics. So bio-based plastics are those that are either wholly or partially derived from renewable raw materials. And biodegradable plastics are those that can be broken down by microorganisms. So we have a small graph here, which we have bio-based plastics on one end and fossil-based plastics on the other end, and biodegradable and non-biodegradable on the x-axis. So bio-based plastics, some bio-based plastics may be biodegradable, but not all bio-based plastics are biodegradable. For example, even polyethylene and PP, we can derive these plastics from bio-based sources. For example, from sugarcane, we can derive ethylene and we can make polyethylene. That is called a bio-based plastic, but it is still non-biodegradable. On the other hand, we have plastics like polylactic acid, then polyhydroxyalkanoates, then PBS, polybutylene succinate, which are bioplastics and are also biodegradable. And then the conventional plastics are PE, PP, which are derived from fossil-based sources. So next, so the most important or the first plastic that comes to mind when we talk about bio-based or bioplastics is definitely polylactic acid. It is also currently being used commercially, and polylactic acid is sold commercially by a lot of companies all over the world. For example, by SABIC and BASF and so on. So what is polylactic acid? Polylactic acid is a thermoplastic aliphatic polyester, which is derived from renewable sources such as cornstarch, sugarcane, and it is made by polymerization of lactic acid. So the applications of PLA currently are predominantly PLA films are the ones that are mostly used. So we use them as mulch films in agriculture, and then they can also be used as cups and tea bags. PLA is biocompatible, hence it can also be used for medical implants which are intended to be absorbed by the body. It is also a polymer which is used in 3D printing. It can also be processed by conventional techniques like extrusion, injection molding, blown film, thermoforming, and fiber spinning. So the advantages of PLA, one advantage is that it has a lower melting point than fossil-based plastics. So it's easiest to work with because it has less energy required to transform, and it can be compostable. Some disadvantages are, since bio-based plastics, they are more difficult to make commercially. They're currently more expensive when compared to conventional plastics, but research is going on to also bring them down to the level of commercial conventional plastics. The composting, though PLA is compostable, for industrial use, the composting process is slightly slower. And since it has a lower melting point, it is also unsuitable for high temperature applications. And because of its, because of less barrier properties for long-term food storage applications, it is not recommended. and toughness and impact resistance are less. So to combat these disadvantages, there's a lot of research that goes on in this field to blend or to make a composite so that these disadvantages of PLA are overcome, and then PLA can also be commercially used for other applications. So let's talk about some current research or some blends that have been made with PLA, which have helped in improving these properties. So one is PLA with chitosan or PLA pectin composite films are used in antimicrobial packaging for food applications. Then there's a company called Toray, which they have developed a Quitor PLA film. They have used a co-monomer to make the polymer more amorphous. So when we make a polymer more amorphous, we improve its impact strength and toughness. They have noticed that pure PLA films have, when they're used for packaging chips or those kind of applications, they make a lot of noise. So they've tried to use a co-monomer to also make the film quieter. Then just like biaxially oriented polypropylene, we have biaxially oriented PLA films sold under the trade name Nativia, which are currently used for flexible packaging of fresh produce and bakery, frozen foods, and so on. Then Clear Lam, a company called Clear Lam, they have introduced modified PLA and polyolefin laminates for cheese wrapping. And the development, since we spoke that PLA has a lower melting point, so high heat resistance and high impact PLA will also allow it to be used as a renewable replacement for polystyrene and PP in high heat thermoformable applications such as microwavable food trays, hot beverage cup lids, and so on. So this is all about PLA. Next, we'll go to another type of polymer called polyhydroxyalkanoids. So these are linear polyesters which are produced in nature by bacterial fermentation of sugar or lipids. So generally, how they're how they're produced commercially is a culture of microbes fed with nutrients so that they multiply rapidly. And once they reach a certain level, the composition is changed to force the microorganism to synthesize these compounds. These PHA are synthesized by the microorganisms for energy storage normally. So the mechanical and biocompatibility of PHA, you can actually use a lot of monomers along with PHA to modify the properties and make it enable it to be used for a wide range of applications. PHAs can be classified as short chain length PHAs and medium chain length PHAs. So if the chain has around 3 to 5 carbon atoms in the hydroxyalkanate group, you call it as short chain length. Medium chain length ones have around 6 to 14 carbon atoms. So the advantages or benefits of PHAs are that after hydrolysis, that is they decompose or degrade by hydrolysis, they are non-toxic after hydrolysis. Hence, they can be used in the medical related field. So to modify its physical and mechanical properties, there are 3 techniques that we can use. Either you can blend it, or they can be modified by grafting or copolymerization. So some research has been carried on by blending of PHB with polyethylene glycol, or with PLA or starch, PCl, and lignin. So these can be applied in biomedical applications such as drug delivery, delivery of therapeutics, or as carriers of genetic materials. And some PHAs, when blended or mixed, they have also exhibited features that are similar to conventional synthetic plastics, but they have a lower environmental impact on the production process. Hence, these are the advantages of PHAs, and that is why there's a lot of interest in the research field to develop better PHAs for suitable applications. Another biodegradable polymer that we can talk about is polyethylene furanoate. So it is produced by polycondensation, and furan dicarboxylic acid, which we see here, is the building block of PEF. The advantages or properties of PEF are it has very good barrier and thermal properties, and gas barrier and water vapor properties even when compared to polyethylene terephthalate. Because of this barrier and gas barrier and water vapor moisture barrier properties, it is used in the packaging industry for alcoholic beverages, juices, and also for packaging applications such as films and trays, because the barrier property is one of the most important properties for this application. So this can be used as an alternative, and benefits of using or production of this polymer is that you have significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and non-renewable energy use. The next polymer that we'll talk about is PBS. It's called polybutylene succinate. It is a synthetic polyester which has a melting point between 112 and 114 degrees Celsius. So it has mechanical properties which are comparable to polypropylene. So it is manufactured via condensation polymerization of succinic acid and 1,4-butane diol. The microorganisms or bacteria called Amycolaptopsis penicillium strains, these can degrade PBS. So it is also a biodegradable polymer. Commercially, bio-based PBS is made by companies like PTT, NCC Biochem, and Mitsubishi Chemical Company. So this this polymer has excellent processability. So it can be processed in the field of textiles into melt blown and other filaments, and it can also be injection molded. Next, we'll talk about polycaprolactone. So polycaprolactone is also a synthetic polyester which is partially crystalline, has a low melting point and a glass transition temperature of -60. So it is synthesized by ring opening polymerization of omega caprolactone. So this is also a biodegradable polymer, and it can be degraded by hydrolysis of its ester linkages under physiological conditions. Since it can be degraded under physiological conditions, it is also used as an implantable biomaterial, and it is particularly interesting for preparation of long-term implantable devices, controlled release, and targeted drug delivery. As always, all polymers, we often try to blend or mix polymers to improve properties. So PCL can also be blended or is blended with other polymers such as PP, polycarbonate, polyethylene oxide to produce other composites with the required properties. So next we have bio-based polyamides. Bio-based polyamides, we refer to the monomers which are obtained from bio-based sources. So this is one example. Radilon is a trade name of a bio-based polyamide which is sold by an Italian company. So DA10 and DC10 monomers are obtained from sebacic acid, which is derived from castor oil. So it is used for the production of PA610, PA1010 and PA10,12. And another company, a France-based company called Arkema, they also have a range of bio-based polyamides. They make PA11 from a monomer called A11 monomer and also other monomers under the trade name Rilsan, and these monomers are derived from castor oil. Apart from this, they also have the conventional polyamides which are made from fossil-based sources. Next, we go to some commercial products, commercial bio-based products that are sold by major companies. So BASF is, of course, a well-known chemical company that I'm sure everyone must have heard about. They have a product called EcoFlex, which they developed almost around 10 years ago. It is used as a blend component for bioplastics. So this EcoFlex is intended to be blended with other plastics to at least derive a partially bio-based or biodegradable polymer. So EcoFlex is also processable on conventional blown film machines which are used for polyethylene, and it is suitable for food contact. So based on EcoFlex and other blends with PLA, BASF has also developed a compostable plastic called Ecovio, which can also be blended further according to the customer's requirements. It is used in packaging production, disposable crockery sector, agriculture, and horticulture. Apart from this, they also have a master batch range called Psychoversal B, which is also based on EcoFlex. So they have about 12 different shades of colors which can be used for mixing, and again, the master batch is also biodegradable. So they are aiming to develop an entire biodegradable range by also offering polymers as well as master batches. So next we have, there's a Korean company called Doyle Ecotech. They have developed a range of polymers called 2 green range, which is ideally a blend of PLA and PBAT and other additives which they have added. So they have 4 series. One is F series, I series, E series, and B series for blown film molding, injection molding, extrusion molding, and blow molding. So for the first time, actually, Doyle Ecotech is one company where I came across a biodegradable product which is also suitable for extrusion blow molding, because most of the current research is suitable basically for extrusion or for making films or for injection molding. So this company also offers a range of products for even extrusion blow molding, so you can use it for making containers. Then SABIC. SABIC has a program called True Circle program. So currently the talk of the industry, or the current talk, is always about circular economy. So circular economy or the circular process refers to the process starting from sourcing of the raw material to the end of life cycle of the product. They say that the raw material should be sourced, and after end of life, it should go back to the environment and it can be reused again. That is an ideal example of a circular process. So SABIC is working on producing or enabling this kind of true circle polymers. So where they source PE and PP from renewable sources, they're made from bio-based feedstock. So these products, since they're sourced from renewable sources, they have a lower carbon footprint in comparison to fossil-based alternatives. So they support about 80% reduction of fossil depletion, and there's also a 4 kg reduction of greenhouse gas footprint. Next, another interesting development or research in the field of biopolymers is called polydiketoenamine. So the US Department of Energy's Berkeley National Lab, they have designed a recyclable plastic where they say that this polymer can be deassembled into the raw material or monomer, and it can also be reassembled again into different shapes, colors, without loss of performance or quality. So they use a family of molecules which are called diketoenamines, which are held by dynamic covalent bonds. So since these bonds are strong, but they can also be broken down using small amounts of acid. So this is an experiment that they have done. So the first step is they have taken red, blue, yellow, and black samples of the polydiketoenamines, which they were depolymerized at room temperature in sulfuric acid. So you get a mixture of these of the original monomer and additives. So after you get the mixture, the second step is the monomer is extracted into a base at room temperature, and then it is separated from the additives by filtration. So after filtration, the extract is acidified, and the monomer, the pure monomer, is precipitated, which is shown in the final image as the pure monomer. This monomer can again be reused. So this is a research that has been done in a lab, but I think it is yet to be developed commercially, and its commercial potentials and further research is to be carried out in this field. So that's all for in my topic about developments in the field of materials. So next we go on to developments in the field of plastic processing. So when we talk about processing, Industry 4.0 is we also call it the smart industry, or the fourth industrial revolution, which is currently going on. Smart industries are currently the in thing. Internet of Things and all automation and all of that is currently used. So it is Industry 4.0 basically refers to integration of industrial production with information and communication. So the objective of this Industry 4.0 is to enable communication between man, machine, and product. There should be seamless integration. So there are two ways two steps that are used in this process. One is horizontal integration. So you not only interlink different process steps, but also you interlink different companies along the entire value chain. And vertical integration is you integrate or you connect individual part systems of the production cells, so that overall you obtain a single controllable production system. So the advantages of using a smart industry are, or the objective is, it enables optimization of the current production processes, and it also allows for economical manufacture of individual customized parts. So I would like to show a small video regarding this one, regarding smart industries. Just 1 second. So this is a video by Aachen Institute in Netherlands, where they have explained about how a smart industry is, or Industry 4.0 is used in the context of plastic industries. So next we'll see this small video. They've taken a case study in the use of a lightweight bicycle saddle. How automation is used in the plastic industry.
Rajini ma'am, we are not able to listen to the audio. Maybe you can also explain in the background as the video is going.
Yeah, sure. So this is an example of how the automation or Industry 4.0 is used in the plastics industry for making a small common part. So these slides are actually self-explainable. It's just another 10 seconds. So it'll be done, and then I'll explain. So that's all about this video. So this video is just a small example of how 4.0, this technique or a smart system can be used in the plastics industry. It's basically about seamless integration from the production process to the final quality control process, and this is achieved predominantly through use of sensors and a level of automation. This industrial revolution, this advantage, or it gives the opportunity. Basically, the bottom line is you can also make small parts or batch size one at the same cost as mass production, because mass production, when we all know that to make only one sample, it costs way more. So this kind of smart systems also enable us to produce even batch size one at the same cost. So it also integrates supplier and customers, but also closer closer interlinking of internal departments and processes. So information is communicated real time between different processes and departments, and if at all there is anything that is going wrong in the process, it can also be corrected immediately because of real time data. So the advantages are production of individualized customized parts, shortening of development, startup and setup times. So this is about Industry 4.0, but the next industrial revolution is Industry 5.0, and talks of which are currently going on. Industry 5.0 basically talks about integration between man and robot. So it calls for seamless working and seamless communication, so that we also use human intervention and robotic capabilities for the benefit of the industry, and optimize the current processes. So next we'll go to another technology, or a new technology that is being developed in blow molding. So it is called, there's a new bottle lightweighting technology. So I'm sure when it comes to extrusion blow molding, all of you would have heard about Parisson programming. So Parisson programming is used to add material selectively on the bottle during Parisson or during processing, so to give strength to the delicate parts while ensuring that the bottle is lightweight. So you selectively reinforce the products, and this technique is mostly used for non-round and rectangular containers with handles, where there is a chance of denting on the sides or chance of less material deposition on the sides. So that is conventional Parisson programming. So a company, an American-based company called Graham Packaging, they've developed a method of selectively reinforcing a bottle wall, and they call it the acute strength design. So in this case, they add extra material as vertical stripes on the selected locations based on the container design. So the additional resin is just added to the Parisson just before it exits the extrusion die height, and it is accomplished with additional equipment that can also be retrofitted to their existing machines. So it's predominantly used for handleware and other rectangular non-round containers. So they aim to achieve light weighting by this technique, because the objective of any bottle or any sort of container that you'd make through extrusion blow molding is to make a container as lightweight as possible, but it should fulfill all the strength and other drop test requirements. So by using this technique, they have made sure that the container matches the strength requirements, but the material usage is also less. So this would result in a lot of reduction in material during the wastage and recycling. So next, a company called Priority Plastics, they have made a new innovation in injection stretch blow molding for PET containers. So using this technology, they have been able to make super wide mouth PET containers. Then they've also made PET containers which are comparable to extrusion blown jugs. Then another type of handle, which is injection molded as part of the neck finish, also they've made. Stackable bottles, rectangles, wider necks, than are available with current injection stretch blow molding technology they've developed using this technique. Other advantages that they offer through this technique are quick changeovers, and then energy savings up to 40% by recapturing the high pressure blowing air which is in use. Then another development is OTC, over-the-counter medicines bottles made with less plastic. So this is an initiative by GSK Consumer Healthcare for their Advil containers. So what they have developed is they've developed a new barrier technology. They use a nucleating agent which is added to the blow molding grade of HDPE during manufacturing process. So just like how we add master batches or additives, they are adding a nucleating agent, which they say using this they are able to make the bottle with less plastic, and making a bottle or reducing the amount of plastic which goes into making a bottle will reduce the plastic in over 80 million bottles by 20% is their estimation. So which results in a reduction of nearly 5 lakh pounds of plastic in the environment. So next we go into the field of recycling. Recycling is another important important theme in the industry, because after usage, recycling and end of life of a product is what matters. So Unilever, Unilever has developed a new detectable black pigment for HDPE bottles. So they have this range of Tresemme and Lynx brands for which they use black bottles. So normally how black bottles are recycled in automatic recycling centers is they use optical sorting machines which use near infrared light. So the standard black plastic, the commonly carbon black pigment is used. So this carbon black will absorb the IR light, and hence the black bottles are rejected in the optical sorting machines. So they don't go for recycling normally. So using this new detectable black pigment, they have made sure that the bottles are detected and are hence sent for sorting. They have tried it out in their plants in UK, and these bottles were able to be detected by the sorting machines. So they can easily be recycled and sorted. And roughly, since earlier these black bottles were all going only into waste, now these bottles also can now be potentially recycled and sent for recycling. Then SABIC. SABIC has developed a new process called the thermal anaerobic conversion process, which converts low quality mixed and recycled plastic, which would normally go for incineration or landfill. They use this process to convert it into usable feedstock. So the circular polymers that we spoke about, which are offered by SABIC, they are produced using a pyrolysis oil feedstock, which is created from the recycling of this low quality plastic through this thermal anaerobic process. So this feedstock can be used as an alternative to traditional fossil materials. And the resultant polymers, they have done their testing, and they say that the properties are equal to virgin polymers with good mechanical and processing properties. So next, another method of foam recycling has been developed or identified by a company called Covestro. So they say that apart from mechanical recycling, which is the commonly used recycling method, they are also using chemical recycling, where the plastics are split chemically into their original molecular structures. So to completely recover the core raw materials which are used in polyurethane, they use enzymatic recycling. So the used products are broken down into chemical constituents using enzymes, and thus the recycled raw materials are produced which can be reused. So they also use a combination of enzymatic recycling, pyrolysis. So this is the process, but this process also needs further research, and they also need the regulatory support from the government. Next, plastic aluminum laminate recycling. So a lot of times currently plastic aluminum laminates are very difficult to recycle because they consist of multiple components. There is plastic and there is also aluminum. So recycling of laminates is normally a difficult task. So a company called Enval has developed a technique to recycle plastic aluminum laminates, and they estimate that as much as 160,000 tons of this material can be prevented from going to landfill using this process. They've used a large microwave oven which is heated up to 600 degrees, where the laminate is broken down before going into the microwave. The laminate is broken down where the plastic becomes a gas. The aluminum gets freed from the plastic and it can be reused. And the gas is also used. Some of the gas is also used to power the plant that is working, and the rest of it is cooled and converted to oil, which can be sold. Next, for PET recycling, there's a process called Extreme Renew, which has been patented by SIPA and ERIMA. SIPA is a processing company and ERIMA is a famous recycling company. So they have integrated processes. Normally, there are two processes in PET recycling which are separate. One is we create process-ready material from pre-washed flakes which are coming from used bottles. And these flakes or granules, which they are later used for production of new bottles or preforms. So Extreme Renew process combines both these steps, and it is capable of using almost 30% less energy than conventional systems, and CO2 emissions are estimated to be about 80% lower. So ERIMA, they have developed a technology called Vacuurima technology, where moisture from the flakes are removed under vacuum. So the difference between conventional systems and extreme renew process is, in the conventional system, the extruder processes the flakes into granules which are to be processed later. So it involves cooling the melt into a solid, cutting, drying, and then later remelting again to be processed again. So in the extreme renew process, they combine both the steps by connecting the extruder directly to the preformed production unit. So both processes are combined. So this system uses less energy than alternative systems. Then the color of the processed material is also improved because it keeps acetaldehyde levels, which is a degradation product that can affect the taste of bottle liquids, also very low. A highly homogeneous melt is created, and the containers also boast a high level of aesthetics. Then another project for bulky items or mixed waste recycling is a project called AIM Plus, which was done by a Spanish-based research institute. So plastics from bulky items, they recycled it into products, and according to them, they identified bulky waste as mixed waste, including furniture, mattresses, fixtures, large rigid plastics, and other materials. So they've done this project to also provide for the development of a framework on bulky waste management. So they have recycled the mixed textiles into two products. One is a fiber reinforced composite made of a blend of recycled PP, cotton fibers, and compatibilizer, and an insulation felt for corrugated roof panels. Then hard plastics and wood were processed via hydrocatalytic gasification technology into polymethanol, which is a technical grade chemical solvent, or it can also be used as an additive for fuels. And PU foams. So they've converted PU foams into three types of products. One is adhesives, other one is foam isolation panels, then the other is mattress materials. So adhesives, two types of adhesives they have tried to convert it. One is through alcoholysis into a recycled polyol, which they have branded as Recycol 602, and another one into a moisture curing PU hot melt adhesive. Then foam isolation panels, which are normally made for roof or wall insulation, they have been made from 30% recovered polyols. And mattress materials, some of the PU foams which they collected, they made it into three types of mattress materials. One is from acidolysis into a polyol called Recypol 202, which they mainly consist of partially reduced PU and polyether polyol. And some of the other foams were recycled into a polyether viscoelastic foam, which is used as a top layer in mattresses. And the third one, they've processed it into a mattress core made of recycled PU, polyether sulfone, and long cotton fibers. So these are some of the recent innovations or developments which are going on in this field. But there's obviously a lot of further research and development also to be done, which can also help improve the recycling technologies at a large scale. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very useful and very informative presentation. In a short span of time, you have introduced us to so many different concepts like circular economy, Industry 4.0, and then new technology for recycling. I can see there are so many participants, especially industry stalwarts and eminent professors like Professor Ravichandran, Professor V. Subramaniam, and we also have many enthusiastic students. So I think we will have a great discussion after this seminar. So you can ask your questions.
Students, if you have any doubt, you can ask the expert now. I have also shared a feedback link in the chat box. Kindly submit your feedback in that link.
Rajani,
Yes, sir.
you have made a rapid fire presentation.
Yes, sir.
Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, in respect of the bio-based polymeric materials,
Yes, sir.
so where are we in respect of cellulose, keratin,
So sorry, can you repeat again? This is not able to hear.
the bio-based polymeric materials, precursors,
Yes. Yes, sir.
like cellulose,
Yes, sir.
keratin,
Yes, sir. Like cellulose?
Collagen.
Yes, sir. So I think research is going on in the current field, but on a commercial level, personally, I've not come across them. But I'm not sure. Maybe they are available worldwide. I don't know. Personally, I've not come across cellulose and collagen currently. But again, most of the development in this field is focused on making films for blown film processes. So I
Okay.
also believe further research should be done for other processes also, like as I said, for extrusion blow molding, injection blow molding. Also, there needs to be development in the field of materials.
See, in case of the regeneration,
Yes, sir.
uh, regenerated cellulose used as a rayon, there is
Okay.
a renewed interest on a bulk scale.
Okay,
In
sir.
this the films, etc., the volume of consumption is rather limited.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
as a tire reinforcing material,
Okay,
there is
sir.
a emerging requirement
Yes,
in
sir.
respect of replacing steel cord with the renewable
Okay.
or regenerated cellulose.
Okay, sir.
So, how far the research is on in that aspect, ma'am?
So regenerated cellulose. Honestly, I don't have much knowledge regarding that product. I'll
Okay.
have to only look up and talk about it because my idea is mostly regarding what I have come across in trade fairs and all. It's mostly regarding films, and my field is into extrusion blow molding. So I always look out for development in the field of containers and those kind of materials.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
this is
Thank you,
something.
Ranjani.
Yes, sir.
Sir, just a small correction. On the tire cord front, the current trend is to use more of polyamide 6 based as well as polyester based reinforcement for the tire industry. The cellulose based reinforcement was in 60s and 70s. Afterwards, it lost to nylon, and nylon is slowly losing to polyester and steel radial. So I don't think in the near future cellulosic will come to a level of getting into the tires because of the commercial and other aspects. Actually.
Thank you, Balaji sir. Student, if you have any other questions,
Ms. Ranjani, I would like to ask a question.
Yes,
In the current scenario of this COVID and all, where we are in a dire need of oxygen cylinders,
yes, sir.
what is the role of the plastic packaging and plastic materials in containing this kind of liquid oxygen or oxygen gas, or making some portable oxygen cylinders? Is there any this question is also to other industry people also, is there any solution so that
So
we
I
can
think
currently.
further research should be done in this field because I personally don't know about plastic being used. I did come across some portable cylinders, but I don't know how far it is used currently in this COVID scenario. So maybe because now the requirement has come up, there might be other developments in the future. So if anyone else knows any other further developments, they are welcome to share.
uh, I think we don't have any further questions. We can wind up this session, madam.
Yes, sir.
On
Sure.
behalf of Department of Polymer Engineering of V.S. Abdurrahman University and IPA student chapter of our institute, I thank you, Ms. Ranjani, for her time, and also the IPA who will always be supporting us in organizing a seminar like this. And also, I could see today we have totally around 211 participants in this, and full time we have around 75 participants. So some men coming and going in. So it's a very good number during this pandemic time. I thank all the participants, especially Ravichandran sir, Subramanian sir, Balaji sir, Raman sir from industries. These are all very high-profile people who attended today's seminar. I had to see them. And also I thank Ms. Ranjani. So you have introduced many eye-opening session today, like to the young budding engineers, like how these bio-based plastics are coming up in replacing your fossil fuels, fossil-based plastics. And also the industry 4, although you didn't in depth into that, but you have introduced a few things about I4 and I5. Thank you for that. And also recycling, few technologies you have introduced. Thank you so much. We expect a few more topics from you in near future.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
one and all for being here. And I request everyone, I have posted the link for your feedback. Kindly use that link to share your feedback with us to give us a betterment in the next time. Am I not audible, sir? Mr. Ranjani, we have a question. They need a copy of this presentation.
Sure, sir. I'll share it with Murli, sir.
Please, you give me your Valayapati sir. You give your feedback. I can get your email ID from that, and I can post it to you. Not an issue. Thank you, everyone. Kindly register your feedback in the link provided. Thank you.
Thank you.